Hi, welcome back to my channel. Thank you for tuning in today. I've been meaning to do a video on this film for quite a while. If you've seen the title of this podcast today, this chat, it is going to be about Darren Aronofsky's 2017 film called Mother. That's Mother with an explanation mark, I should say. Hello, and thank you for tuning in. It means a lot. So, if you're here and you're new to my channel, please consider subscribing because it does place value in this level of knowledge and thought. I do take the time to upload a video once a week. Sometimes I might be uploading twice a week. It really depends on my schedule. I am back now studying at the moment, so there is a lot happening in my life, massive shifts. But I always come here and take the time to do this because it means something to me, and being able to share my mind and my heart with the world on this level is quite incredible. I am open to DMs, so if you'd like to send me a DM, you can. Just send it through to me on Instagram, and it's Algoliath_artist. So you can find me that way, or just go to the website. I'm around. If you want to get in contact with me, you can. And also for those still waiting for their spiritual consultations, I've been trying to get a hold of everyone and organize the time to tee up the conversation with you and have that spiritual session with me over the phone via WhatsApp or Signal app. And everyone else, thank you so much for booking a reading with me, an astrological chart reading. It is now on my website, so you can go ahead and purchase my recordings from there. You send in your details and I send back the recording to you, a breakdown of your chart and themes and all of the rest of it. So without further ado, what I'm here for today is to talk about this film. Now, I know that on my channel, a lot more views go to other things that I talk about, like the occult, or deals with kind of like the demonic world, or any level of heavy narcissistic stuff, or even just kind of like my breakdown of star signs and things like that. So I know that this video won't attract as many people, but if you're up for a bit of a deep dive into this film, and a bit of a deep dive into all of the themes that are included and encompassed in this film, then this is probably going to be for you. So stick around and we'll just kind of jump straight into it. A bit of an advanced mother chat, I guess, is what this is going to be for today. If you're not familiar with Darren Aronofsky's work, his first film was called Pi. He also has done Requiem for a Dream. He did Black Swan with Natalie Portman. And I just find him so incredibly fascinating. I've been researching a little bit into him. I'm always interested in filmmakers, more so than I am usually than I am with actors. Screenwriters and film writers really interest me. Because that's where, the stories are really conceived. And so this man is just a genius. And the film really encapsulates so many things about many, many different things, like religion, human development, how that impacts one on the other. It really looks at Abrahamic religions, Kabbalistic things, Judaic mysticism. There is so many things that are compacted into his films, whether it was Black Swan with like the darker aspect of the swan, or it's this film, which is Mother. So this is a spoiler alert, so I'm going to do a summarization of the film, and then I feel I'm going to go over some of my notes that I have here about the film. And yeah, so if you haven't seen the film yet, then stop watching this video, go watch the film, and then come back here and I'll be here, and you can hear my thoughts on all of this. So, so I think first of all, when I think about this film, I want to look at Darren and what he was trying to communicate. And it's been a while since this film came out. I remember it came out back in 2017, and I had to go to an independent theater. I'm a bit of a foodie. I'm a bit of a movie person. I love really interesting films that are very obscure and very weird. Very proud to say that I have zero interest in any type of like mainstream Marvel films or anything that is like light comedies and shit like that. That's just not my vibe. It's not my thing. I find films like this quite fascinating. I am a man with a mind, and I like to use my mind. So, first of all, I remember watching the trailer for this film, and if you have only seen the trailer for this film, I want to first look at that, because the way that this film was marketed was really an inaccurate depiction that was like clickbait in a way. And I think that rubbed a lot of people the wrong way, because it looked like a horror film, and it looked like something that was intriguing enough to get audience and kind of, asses in seats to go pay to see it. But I feel that what was delivered in terms of like the intellectual bandwidth of what this film is was just light years ahead of its time. And I think that in the next few years, this film is going to become so much more prevalent. And every year since 2017, I went and I bought this movie on Blu-ray, actually. And every year I come back and I make the time. I'm like, fuck it, I'm just going to watch this film again. I sit in my bed or I sit on the couch and I just put it in and watch this film, because every single time I do, I get something out of it that I just didn't see before. And I love that about this film. Whether it's because I've grown and my perspective of what I think the film is communicating has changed, or maybe something's happened in the world. There's another war happening in the Middle East, and more fighting around these holy places, and the soaking of blood on the ground, and what that means in the spiritual world, and with portholes and things like that. It's so complex. So this film just keeps giving something back to me. And so being here to want to share it with people and get people invested in this film is really important to me. And so, yeah, when I look at Darren Aronofsky, I'm a mystic. So I'm like looking at his chart, looking at his numbers, looking at all that type of thing. Like, numbers is patterns and study of the world that we're in. And of course, Mother Nature. And this film, being titled Mother, is really fundamentally the building blocks of a monotheistic religion, the father and the mother. And of course, environmentalism is a huge part of what this film is. And when I was researching into Darren's life and looking into what he's done in his history, he used to actually do biological film research and field research out in Kenya and Alaska. So he's had a lot of really interesting experiences trekking throughout his time when he went through Europe and he went through the Middle East. Very much an outdoor person that has taken so much of his life and how much he has seen of humanity as an artist, as a film creator, and then putting that into this type of perspective and then being able to put all of this together is just really quite an incredible sight to behold, because it sums up so many things. So the film fundamentally is really about God and Mother Earth and what humans are doing here on the planet and the forces that live in the house. So the house being planet Earth, or Mother being Jennifer Lawrence's character, is the embodiment of the divine feminine, and of course the divine masculine living in the house. So the house is really a metaphor for planet Earth. And the story of the Bible is kind of played out in this very fast-paced film that really kind of grabs you by the throat and does not let go. And the way that it's shot as well is deliberately very tight scenes that are always on Jennifer's face, showing this kind of character journey that she's going through, or it's kind of like we as the audience are looking over her shoulder at what is transpiring in front of her as it's all kind of unfolding in live time. So if it's kind of like a reality TV vibe, where it's like we're just merely observing what's happening in the story as it escalates. So the story is she's in a house. It's her kind of dream house. They're renovating it. They're out in the country. It's a really beautiful big house. I love the house. To me, that would just be my my dream house, because it's so earthy and the wooden floors, and so she's living there with her husband, who is Javier Bardem, and the story is fundamentally her being Eve and him being Adam. And of course, then the first man shows up. And then after that, his wife, Michelle Pfeiffer, Eve, shows up. And then later on, their two children show up. And then we see the first murder happen in the house. We see Cain and Abel. One brother turns against another. One, meaning one man, kind of turns against another man. And then there's this roller coaster that starts to take place. And it's just an explosion of all of these biblical references from like the Bible, in a sense, where it's like the population gets big. All of a sudden, tons of people start coming through the house. It sits on the sink and it breaks, and Jennifer gets really upset, and she's like, all these people are in our house. And it's also about her husband, Javier Bardem's character, being an artist, and also what it's like to live with an artist. Me being one myself, I know it's definitely different. Like if just pausing this kind of plot summary for a minute, if you've ever been in a relationship with an artist, if you've ever lived with an artist, you will definitely know what the fuck I'm talking about when you watch a film like this. Just by the way, being with the creative is very, very different to being with someone that's very kind of like regimented in structure and following protocols and policies and doing like what's the opposite of an artist, like an engineer or something like that. It's a person that is very explosive and very impulsive and has these moments of brilliance that he has to act on, and very intense. And so he's kind of creating this thing where he hasn't been writing for a while because he's a poet, and then all of a sudden things start coming to him, and he gets this breakthrough in his head, and all of these things start spinning, and she gets pregnant, and then he gets inspired to writing these words, and then the words that he writes kind of is basically the blueprint of the text of the Torah, which kind of blows up, and all these people start to idolize him as the one who's created this thing. And so she gets pregnant, and then everything kind of goes from there, where it's like the crowd comes, and yes, there is a really disturbing scene in this film where all of the people that start to idolize him because he's closer to God than they are, they want to ingest him. Just like Christians, when they eat bread, they eat the body of Christ every Sunday. So they want to consume Christ into their body. So they end up eating the baby. I know this is a very heavy, heavy scene that really had people walking out of the film. I remember sitting in the film for the first time in the movie theater in this, it was like the night that I went to see it. It was like perfect atmosphere. The air conditioner had broken, and I'm sitting in the theater, and there's quite a few people there because it was quite a controversial film when it came out. And then halfway through the film, or at that scene point where the baby gets consumed, people were just getting up and leaving the theater. And to me, I was like, this is crazy. Like, this is what theater is really the fuck about. Because this film doesn't make you feel good. It's not a feel-good film that people want conventionally, where they walk out and everything's kind of answered for them. It doesn't make them think about anything. It wasn't like fear or entertainment. This is a really complex film that shows the series of events that are taking place here in the world in real time, as it's opposed to the Bible and what happened back in the day, all playing out at one time. So we've got like different levels of consciousness happening, different levels of time periods happening regarding the earth and the forces that are at play on the earth as well, particularly around religion. So I hope I haven't lost anyone, because I know that's a lot, but if you've seen this film, then you would know that it is a lot. And it all comes into like looking at the darker aspects of Christianity and Islam, Judaic mindsets, and really just a lot of the Eastern tradition that is really upholding what this film is and what Darren was trying to communicate. And I think for me, you could also look at this film in a way where it's an environmental film, where it's looking at us just not taking responsibility, or just the concept of mother, and really is like taking and giving. So it's like the mother is the aspect that gives. You know, women give life, women hold life, and they're the ones that make a home. And that's all she was trying to do. So we feel this really strong empathy for Jennifer Lawrence's character in the film, because a woman would probably feel it more than a man, because it's like, if you've ever, tried to build a family and be the female, the mother archetype in a family, it's a nurturing thing. It's a receptive thing. And it's giving. It just keeps giving and giving and giving until it's like there's just nothing left to give. And that's actually the theme at the end of the film, when she's just like, you know what, I just can't give you anymore. I'm sorry I wasn't enough. And she just takes it all back, which is also a reference point to Mother Earth just going, you know what, you guys are just coming in here, you're just overpopulating, you're completely destroying me, you don't respect me, you don't care about me, you worship a god more than you worship planet Earth, and then you wonder why it's not sustainable, and then I get mad, and then I just go, fuck it, I'm taking you all back. And so as an occultist, looking at it from that point of view, it's also like, yeah, at some point, Mother Earth could reset this in a nanosecond, and so and that's what happens. Also, there's a scene where at the end, spoiler alert again, she says to him one of my favorite lines in the film, and I think we can all relate to this if you've been in a relationship with a narcissist. Javier Bardem's character is definitely the archetype of a narcissist who's very obsessed with himself and his legacy, which is what a lot of masculine energy is anyway. I'll look at that in a minute, but the line that she says to him, which really haunts me, is, you didn't love me the way that I loved you. You never loved me. You just loved me. You just tongue-tied. You never loved me. You just loved how much I loved you. And so, I mean, that right there is just the most perfect line you could say in regards to being in a relationship with someone that is a taker, and they just take and take and take and take until you realize that they really were only interested in what they could get, or they didn't take the time to see her and understand her, or they wanted something from her in a way. And a lot of women, as I've met and I've talked about in previous videos, I did a video talking about the dark feminine, which is when a woman is very badly scorned and then she moves into her masculine and hates the masculine, but will use her feminine wiles to trap the masculine to exact revenge, is something that is definitely rooted in this film very, very strongly. And I found myself identifying with this so much, because it's just like, as a woman, life passes through a woman. Like, her body is a baby's home. And so, as a man, I'll never know what that feels like. And then it's also in relation to the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. It's this God that is all about its own self and its own, like, resentfulness of that I'm the only one. You can only follow me. It's only me. And that level of what happens to someone's mind when it becomes so rooted in the concept of Christ or the concept of God rather than actually finding God within themselves to act in a way that God would want them to through themselves, which is really interesting to me when it comes to God and religion, is that people will buy a crystal or a rock and idolize this crystal or element from nature, not understanding they themselves are an element of nature as well. And it's them expressing things through their behavior and their mindset and how they behave in the world and impact others, but they consume something as to think that it will gift them some level of power. And that was actually also there as well, where Javier Bardem has this rock, which is also very symbolic of the things that we carry. And I won't get onto that too much. I think you just need to see the film. I won't give that part away, actually, because it's like you need to understand what that rock really represented. If you know what it represented, let me know. Also, as well, if you know what that yellow stuff was that she was drinking in the film, that was really interesting to me. I'd love to hear someone's thoughts on what you think that yellow stuff was. Like, was she trying to, was it some level of painkiller? Was it some kind of purification thing? I'm not sure. And I found that interesting in terms of like medication. Also, I know and I feel in my heart these days the medical world is just laughable in a lot of ways, and doctors are really just kind of pharmaceutical reps in a lot of ways. I saw that there as well. So, oh my God, it's so personal, and it's such a personal film to me. And yeah, so it's about sacrifice and the give and the take, and a lot of, women having to give up their life for a family, or giving up what they give up is not necessarily what the male gives up. It's a lot of things that can be quite unbalanced in that dynamic as well. And if you've ever been in a relationship with a taker, that's really, it's hard to be with someone that is, well, I mean, I've dated other artists as well, and there's a lot of times where they'd be like, I now realize I need to be with other creatives. There's no use not being with other creatives, like I mentioned, but you have to have this thing where it's like the artist has to suspend themselves for long periods of time in a mindset or a place that allows them to do their work. Because if they don't, it feels like it gets really hard, because it's not a conventional life. I know hope I'm making sense. And so, yeah, she needs to be seen, but she's just not being seen, and she's just kind of struggling to keep up. And it can be a lot like that with someone. If you're in a relationship with someone and they have a career, and it's like all about their antics and what they're doing, and it's their thing that they're trying to create. And that's really hard. It's really, really hard to see. It's hard to be around. And in the divine masculine and feminine, that's what it is where in the Kabbalah there is Binah, which is the divine feminine, which is nurturing and being receptive and being present for a child and emotions and feelings and creation. And we're all a mix of both, really. And then you've got the masculine, which is Hukmah, which is this energy that is territorial, and it is about getting things done. It is the representation of the I am, the ego. And the problem with that, it can become aggressive, and it can become righteous. And it's so interesting that there's this play in the film that goes on between the divine feminine and the divine masculine, and her not feeling understood, and then him needing more worship and needing more accolades and needing to be seen. And then I thought to myself, as an artist, like, how much of making art is me just expressing myself? And then there is a part there that is selfish, that does want to be seen. And in order to be a successful artist, you have to be famous. People have to know about your work, otherwise they're not going to buy your work. And then people want to consume your work. And in essence, when they consume your work, they're consuming the extension of the artist. So they're basically consuming me. And I remember that when that came out back in the day when I published my tarot card deck, the El Goliath tarot deck, I learned very quickly in marketing that it wasn't about the drawings necessarily in this thing that I'd created that kind of took on its own life out there and that people consumed. It was that people wanted to consume the person behind it. And that was very disturbing to me because I was like, what the fuck? But yeah, if you're an artist and if you're an artist or you know one, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about here. It is very strange living in a world, in a society where people idolize other people to be like them. And you'll see in like celebrity culture and Hollywood, people pay money to have operations to look like other people. It's really crazy, but it's a crazy, crazy world. And yeah, it's just this balancing like a seesaw in this film that comes up a lot. And all of the different things that come up is just so interesting. And I just love this film. And I can't stop thinking about it a lot of the time. I can't stop. It'll come back around once a year or so, and I'll be like, yep, this is where humanity's heading. I see now, humans are experimenting more and more with very dangerous things. They're creating AI. They're playing with this thing that copies us and mirrors us. It's feeding off the data that we give it. How's that going to go for us? People becoming more separated from their own divinity, from their own spirituality. Everyone's consuming each other and discarding each other. I see now we're seeing this inversion of society, really, where we've got women that want to be men that want to be women. We've got this very dangerous ideologies that are kind of coming in there. It's very antichrist energy. It's really interesting. We've got like satanic kind of technology that's coming through where they're genetically enhancing food. It's not enough for Mother Earth just to have an orange. We've got to try and make it a different color now. And how humans are trying to become the god. It's like, no, you're a flea living on a dog. You don't get to control, like without the dog, you don't exist. And it's like this narcissism that humans have. And it's just so interesting. And it looks at the patriarchy. It looks at the matriarchy, the mother. Just go fucking see this film. I can't talk about it enough. I feel like I've just jumped in and told you quite a bit about all of the different themes. If you're into real spirituality, then I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. I don't have negative things necessarily to say about it, because anything that wasn't perfectly shot in this film, I overlook it because the concepts of this film are just so strong. And it's more kind of like an observation of where we're headed as a species than it is about us having to choose a side and then sticking to that team in the film, whether you're rooting for her or you're kind of a religious person. This film is designed to provoke, and it's definitely something that you will come out of going, I don't feel good. This feels really uncomfortable. And of course, that's where the shadow work is. That's where you have to go. If you don't push yourself into a place that feels uncomfortable, then you'll never grow. So I'd like to hear what some feminists have to say about this film, because it's interesting. It's like suppressing the masculine is not the way to go, because that's how a misogynist would think. So it's like, I'd love to hear like a feminist debating this film about her thoughts on the depiction, because I remember when this film came out, a lot of people didn't like necessarily how Jennifer Lawrence was so passive in this film. And she'd done other films, like she did The Hunger Games, where she was Katniss, where she had the bow and arrow, and she was this kind of monarch of the warrior archetype, which was going to kind of collapse this tyrannical force of elites. And in this film, she's very passive. And my interpretation of that would be Mother Earth can't defend itself at the rate that we're destroying it. She can't regrow a tree that was like 200 years old and we just cut it down in seconds. And so that's really what it is. At some point, it'll just get to a point where there's just no more. And this film heavily reminds me of a kid's book that I had at primary school. I never owned the book, but I think you may know the book. It's called The Giving Tree. And it's about a boy that plants a tree and it creates shade for him. It creates a cubby house for him. It creates a house for him. It creates food for him. It's the symbology of Mother Earth and him just taking and taking and taking, and until the tree is like, I just have nothing more to give. Like, I'm fucking out, man. It's like, this is it. And you just kept taking and taking, and now there's nothing left. And that's what this is in a lot of ways. And I did explore that actually in my kid's book a little bit at the end, where the volcano just couldn't cry lava anymore. It's not angry anymore. The heat, of the rocks cooled down. And yeah, anyway, it's brilliant film. Go check it out. I feel like I've just told you a lot about it. Very passionate about it, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. If you've enjoyed this podcast, let me know. Leave a comment below. Let me know your thoughts on this. Go deep. Tell me what you think about it. And what was that yellow stuff she was drinking? I want to know. Okay, lots of love. I'm going to leave it here. Okay, bye, bye, bye. Mother, bye, bye.